amiibos or something?
And a huge collection of old Nintendo stuff.
Oh, is that all your old stuff you don't have room for in New York?
Yep, not just that, but also all the huge boxes there are like 200 and something NES games.
Man, you've got that NES collecting on lock, huh?
I know. Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't bought an NES game in a while, although this is the last one I got. Bam.
Final Fantasy. Nice. In the box and everything. That's pretty cool.
Oh, check this out. Books, maps.
Wow. They put all that in with the original game?
Yep.
Wow. That is pretty cool. They don't do that kind of stuff anymore,
Well,
that's for sure.
this, more maps.
Nice. Well, we are live, actually.
Oh,
As
whoa.
of a little bit ago. But I mean, I thought, you showing off your classic NES collection of all those nice mint condition things would be not a bad way to, pre-start the show. It's like our pre-show.
Exactly. I can actually, yeah, Final Fantasy, enter a whole new realm of challenge and adventure. Includes 84-page Explorer's Handbook, Game World and Dungeon Maps, plus full-color monster chart.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, it's weird because I don't think I ever really used those things, but just it was so cool to have them, and like now people don't really do that.
I want to put them on my walls. Now you get a game. You buy an RPG now. You know what it comes with? It comes with a single sheet of paper in there in black and white that says, go to this website for more information.
Yeah, which I'm probably not going to do if I'm just going to jump in there and play it. If it has a bad tutorial, I'll probably just stop playing it.
Let me see if I know what you mean. When you say bad tutorial, do you mean that it has a tutorial?
Well, yeah, I mean that's actually the thing. I think the best game tutorials are actually when you don't know it's a tutorial, like the game just slowly teaches you how to play it without like holding your hand too much. But I do like when a game starts out and it's like this button does this, like as you like come up to something, just so like I don't have to look at the button mapping or whatever. Like I just kind of naturally learn it.
What about the N64 PS1 days where there's a new thing you'll learn and it cuts away from the game, you have a loading screen, and then a separate area where you just learn that one simple function. It goes back to the game.
Man, yeah, I don't miss that. That's bad game design. I was like in between having the detailed books and having the online tutorials like we have nowadays.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, so I want to welcome all of our live viewers and all of those listening via audio as well to the audio podcast once that goes up. This is the World Map Podcast. If you are joining us for the first time, this show is a weekly show we do about everything that could be on the map in this world in terms of video games, tabletop games, I don't know, movies, comic books, regular books, TV shows. We talk about all that great technology, nerdy stuff because it's what we do, man. It's what we do. And I am one of your hosts, Josh, and joining me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Clark.
That's me.
Along with a plush Mario.
Wait for it.
A plush Mario that is wearing a Yoshi suit?
Yes.
Where did you find it? That thing is ridiculous looking. You got like a cone head when you take that. He looks like Dan Aykroyd. That's some weird stuff. Did you get that in Japan or something?
Well, you know what? The tag right here is all in Japanese. So
there you go. There you go. Yeah, and usually we have our host Nick joining us, but he's doing a little traveling this week. Funny enough, sometimes he joins us from his mountain cave hideout, but that's you were here with me in DC last week. You're not back to New York City yet. You're in Nick's mountain cave hideout.
I know, that's probably why he left. He found out I was here and he was scared. He's like, "Oh no, they found me. I have to escape."
Yeah. So he's escaping back to
not mine.
Yeah, he's on his way back to Indiana, I guess. But we'll carry the show without him, just like we did last week. It's Slacker. Probably a short show today. Not a real busy time in gaming right now. We're like in between that early September release period and that early November deluge of games that's going to come at us. But not a ton of stuff being released in October, although we've got Halo coming up here soon. But we can go ahead and jump right into it, I guess, with the backlog. And I've got to say, this was the fastest week. It seems like you were right here sitting beside of me yesterday, not a week ago. And I have failed to really clear much of anything out of my backlog, I got to say. I played 2 games this week, neither of which I really want to talk about. I played Mario Kart a little bit. We got a little on-screen love going on there. That's nice.
Yes, indeed.
For our live viewers, they know what that's about. For our audio podcast listeners, they might think it's a little less appropriate than it actually is. But we won't explain any further than that. But yeah, so I played Mario Kart 8, which is not my favorite Mario Kart game I've ever played. I know we've talked about it on 64 probably is my favorite, which is odd because I don't really care for the 64 iterations of a lot of games and a lot of Nintendo's IP. But 64 probably was my favorite Mario Kart, and it's not just nostalgia. I feel like it was everything. Best battle mode, which was my favorite mode. I feel like a lot of the best courses were introduced in that era. Although, I think Double Dash did some cool things on GameCube.
Kind of wish they would bring that mechanic back, actually.
I do too, and they have like the Koopalings and the baby characters and stuff in the Wii U version, so there's some potential there, I think, to do that. That would be kind of neat. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about the Wii U Mario Kart that doesn't. It's fun. It's Mario Kart. But it's just like, I think the thing that's bothering me the most is the item distribution. I feel like I get a coin 80% of the time. I just get a useless coin.
Are you usually in the front?
Yeah, I'm usually winning, but I don't remember in the old ones getting crappy items when I was winning.
In the ones banana time, and I guess which I love getting bananas because that means you can block something. But
yeah,
now
exactly.
the coin usually bothers me because I always have a full set of 10 coins anyway, so it's almost useless for me, and I can't shells with coins. So I'm in the same now. So yeah, no, the item distribution is I think the item distribution is a lot weaker in this one. I would like if they brought some of the items back previously and brought back certain other mechanics. For example, if you're holding an item behind you by holding down the R button.
Oh, you can't get another item. That bothers me so much, man. Bothers me so much.
That's first to get to. But aside from that, it's almost, which is an amazing game, by the way.
I have to say that I have no idea what you just said. It's that awesome mountain cave hideout internet. We're coming through fine now. What was that again?
I said Mario Kart 8 is almost like Mario Kart 7 for us, which is an amazing game, but I don't like it. It is how it's great, but at the same time, I have fun playing it every single time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll work through and see how this goes with your internet connection there in the mountains today. But what I think you said is it's not your favorite Mario Kart game either. It's an okay game, so game, but you always have fun playing it. And I agree with you. I always have fun playing it too. I mean, you can't go wrong with Mario Kart, but it's a little disappointing as a Mario Kart game to me. And then the other game that I played is Pokemon Shuffle, which was free on the 3DS, and I kind of like messed around with it a little bit on there, and it popped up one day and was like, here's a code to enter on mobile to get some kind of special something or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's right, this game is on iOS. And so I downloaded Pokemon Shuffle on my phone because for some reason it's more socially acceptable when you're supposed to be having a conversation with people to play a game on your phone than to have your 3DS out. I don't know why, but
I was messing around on my phone here.
yeah, see, there you go. So Pokemon Shuffle, I mean, I give like match 3 games a lot of crap. I was talking about this Cookie Jam game that's out now. I talked a little trash about that on Twitter from the World Map Twitter account, but I feel like these match 3 type games are just like so superficial, and to me they like don't do gaming any service. Like they kind of bring it down because casual gamers then start to feel like, oh, this is what video games are like, and I want to be able to say, no, this is not what video games are like. Like we have stories and like all this great stuff. That being said, hey, if you enjoy match 3 games on your phone, I'm no problem with that. Everybody's got their thing. Totally cool. But Pokemon Shuffle, I don't know. For some reason, you put little cute Pokemon in there that I remember. Some of them I remember. Some of them are the newer Pokemon that I don't really know that much about. And you add in the element of me having to like use electric type Pokemon against water types and things like that. And make sure I'm matching up the right type of Pokemon to win the battle. I don't know, you add that in, and it's a pretty decent little fun distraction. I mean, I say I don't like it, but I haven't deleted it off my phone yet, and I'm on like level 50.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of those match 3 games are basically the same game, just skinned differently. What's different about Pokemon Shuffle is that they actually add an element of strategy into the puzzle game, which I find very refreshing because you don't usually see that very often.
What I will say is this makes me very excited because this is like the highest quality, best, most fun match 3 game I've ever played. So it makes me very excited to see what Nintendo is going to start doing on mobile. As we know, they have that partnership with DNA, and we'll be seeing mobile stuff roll out on, iOS and Android more often in the near future. So looking forward to that, actually. I don't think I was before, but Pokemon Shuffle has me sold that Nintendo might be one of those companies that gets mobile right.
Right. And also with their 3DS and their DS, they've been making games for touchscreens for a long time anyway, so they already have experience in that area.
Yeah. I want to go ahead and segue into, since we're talking about the, Nintendo doing the mobile thing, there's not really much of a news motorcycle this week. Fans of the show will remember the news motorcycle usually drives in here and delivers the news to us, but pretty slow news week, actually. But one thing that came out last Monday, really quickly, like really soon after we had done the show, so I've heard a lot of folks, talking about it on the internet and stuff already, but I want to segue into this. Shuhei Yoshida, president of Sony Studios Worldwide, came out and said, like, Sony will not be making a successor to the Vita because the handheld gaming market is so dominated by mobile games now, and people playing on their phones that there's no way that they could financially that it would be a good decision for them to make a Vita successor. And so basically what he said is there will not be another Sony handheld gaming machine. Now, Nintendo's taking this approach of developing mobile games and having the 3DS.
Right.
So what do you think about Sony's decision to not make another handheld? Because we know Nintendo's going to come out with something, even though they just released the new 3DS.
Right. Well, to me, it makes a lot of sense, and I can understand why the Vita didn't sell very well, aside from the hardware issues to begin with, not being able to use SD cards, even though the prototype actually had an SD card slot, etc. But the thing is even though a lot of people wanted full-on console quality games in a handheld system, that's not where people spend their money on handheld, and it never was. And so though there is a market for that, maybe it's very small and certainly not cost-effective to build a device geared towards that. And if you look at the games that make the most money or sell the most on the Vita itself even, they're not those console quality games. They're small, what some might call mobile games, but Vita versions, or indie games, just small little bite-sized chunks of games that you can play while you're on the go in between doing various things. If I'm wanting to play a full console-sized game, I want to have a lot of time to do it, and I want to be sitting on a couch. If I'm playing something on a small screen like that, I probably don't have time for that. I'll be like on an airplane or, sitting in a waiting room somewhere. And I need something that can be broken up in smaller mobile chunks. And so that makes complete sense to me. And that's also why I see Nintendo making another system, because in spite of all this talk with mobile taking over and dooming handheld systems, Nintendo makes a lot of money on their 3DS, and I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. They might make less, but they're still going to make a lot of money on it. And if you notice, they put a different kind of game on their handhelds than they do on their consoles. It's always, even their big game or their longer game, something that might be an RPG, it's still something that can be played in small chunks that does not take a lot of time. Or excuse me.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree and disagree with you, because I agree that Nintendo does a lot of things right with the 3DS by having different experiences for that handheld gamer when they're on a handheld. And you may be right that the majority of the market doesn't necessarily want a console quality experience on the handheld, and that was kind of what the Vita was touted at as way back when it was called the NGP, the Next Generation Portable was its code name from Sony. So there's certainly some argument to be made there. You make some great points, but I honestly feel like Sony is responsible for the death of the Vita more so than the market ever was or ever will be.
Right.
I think that you mentioned that they forced everyone to buy these $80 proprietary memory cards that you could get for like $18 if it was just a regular SD card. They didn't support the Vita with their first party studios very well. There was never a Naughty Dog developed game on Vita. And yeah, okay, so they're dedicated to doing other things, and they had one of their like kind of second tier studios do Golden Abyss, which was a pretty good game. That was a pretty good Uncharted game. I don't know. I mean, they had those initial games like Uncharted Golden Abyss. They had Killzone game in there. They had Gravity Rush, which they're making a sequel to on the console, but it was amazing game. There was this like initial like set of launch titles and launch window titles, and then after that they're like, this is an indie machine, which I've loved. Don't get me wrong, I have loved that I get all these great indies on my Vita, and they're perfect for a handheld thing. It was kind of what you were saying about the types of experiences that Nintendo develops in-house a lot. But I also think there is a market for people who want what the Vita was supposed to offer. I'm certainly in that realm. When I would play my Vita, and I'm talking original OLED Vita with that nice, wide, crisp, beautiful, bright, just amazing screen with all that horsepower that the Vita has, playing some amazing games graphically that I could have never imagined would be possible on a handheld. The ecosystem of the Vita, the UI and stuff, I mean, there were a lot of unnecessary type of apps that they put on there, but the way that the UI itself was actually laid out, I liked. And I think that, Sony with their proprietary memory cards, their lack of first-party support, and their inability to market this thing is what killed the Vita. I mean, there was no... Go out and ask 10 people ages 18 to 34 on the street what the PlayStation Vita is. I would venture that at least 8 of them will not be able to tell you. They've never heard of it. I feel like... and then the PS4 came out, yet another opportunity to market this thing. They never bundled one with the PS4. You could never get a bundle. And then they relegated it to, it's kind of a PS4 accessory. You can do remote play and play your PS4 games streaming to your couch, if you want to use your TV for something else or whatever. I've even used 2 really fast Wi-Fi connections in 2 different states to play Destiny on my Vita, through my PS4 remote play before. Just really cool, great features. I mean, the 3DS doesn't do that. And somehow, it's selling gangbusters. I don't get it, man. I think Sony is directly responsible for shooting themselves in the foot and failing with the Vita. And it makes me sad because when I go from playing my Vita to playing my 3DS, I feel like I'm going from like a real like great piece of technology to just like kind of settling when I play my 3DS. Like, oh well, this is where there's a game, a great first party game, but I really don't care about 3D. I don't care about double screens. I would much rather be playing with 2 joysticks on that beautiful OLED Vita screen. So that, I mean, I don't know, I'm ranting a little bit about that, but I just wish Sony had given this thing more attention, because the Vita, I've never talked to anybody who owns one who didn't love it from the moment that they started playing on it. I mean, it's despite, software library wise, like games library wise, there's no way it compares to what Nintendo has done. But actual piece of hardware wise, it is by far my favorite handheld gaming system that I have ever owned, and I've had everything back to the original Game Boy, Game Gear, all that. So, shame on Sony for this, I think.
I agree with you there for the most part, but I still am not convinced that if they did market it, I think it would have had a longer life and a more prosperous life, certainly. But I still don't think that would have ultimately saved it, or at least saved Sony's handheld development long term. Because again, though there is a market for that, I just don't think the market is big enough to sustain it, considering the amount of money it costs to develop those kinds of titles.
Yeah. I mean, that's also a good point. And I think even I would have even been happy with like take your first party IP, take your Uncharted's, take your Infamous, which by the way we never got an Infamous game on Vita. Still bitter about that. Take your we never got a Gravity Rush 2 years later, even though that game was so critically well acclaimed. Take your first party titles. Maybe don't try to recreate them. Don't try to do what they did with Killzone, but like maybe iterate on it. Like what about a side-scrolling Uncharted game or something?
Right.
Use your IP. We've seen Castlevania do this. Go between 3D and side-scrolling. We've seen a lot of companies take their IP and do different twists on them that are maybe cheaper to develop for, rather than trying to put out a big AAA title every single time. And some of that would have been even nice to have on the Vita. I will say it's been a really great JRPG machine, and there are a lot of great JRPGs on Vita that no one knows about them really, unless you follow that kind of JRPG ecosystem. But you can build yourself a good library of Disgaeas and Soul Leaders and like all those types of Japanese games, pretty cheaply on the Vita.
It also has access to the PS1 Classics library, which is great. I mean, the PS4 still can't even do that.
Yeah, and it always, I don't know what it is about the I don't know if you agree with this or not, but the PlayStation Store, the PSN store on Vita, always just seemed easier to search through, navigate, and like kind of work within as an ecosystem than the eShop does on 3DS to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so.
Yeah, and it seems like they feature stuff that's on. I know the eShop features sales and things like that, but it feels like I'm always wading through. Like, here are 10 new trailers, and like and they all look the same. Like they kind of like the icons look exactly the same for trailers and all these random things that Nintendo just kind of vomits into the eShop. And I feel like it's arranged better in the PSN store on Vita. And if I want a PS1 Classic, if I can find it. If I want to find out what's 10% off this week, I can find it. Stuff like that. Yeah. So,
which is real interesting, because conversely, I think for the consoles, I actually find the Wii U eShop easier to navigate than the PS4 PlayStation Store.
I very much agree with that. Half the time the PSN store on PS4 doesn't even load when you click on it. So it's just like sitting there spinning, and I have to restart my PS4 or something. So the other thing that Vita has access to, and this will kind of segue into another topic that we had to talk about today. The Vita, another great value and thing that I've loved about it is that it has access to Sony's PS Plus system. So, if you're just getting 1 or 2 free games a month on your PS4, still a decent value. But if you're a Vita owner, and on top of that, a PS3 owner, you're getting a lot of free games each month through PS Plus. And oftentimes there are cross-buy games that you can download on PS4 and Vita that are also cross-save, so you can take your experience between each one if you want to. And that's been great. But I wanted to see your opinion about PS Plus. Do you feel like that service is starting to stall or stagnate in any way, and that the things we're seeing come across there each month are maybe a little more lackluster than they used to be?
Not exactly. I would say if you just look at it in the short term, then yes. But if you look at it, since PS Plus started giving the free games, there have always been times where you might maybe a 2 or 3 month period have games that are not as big or games that are a bit lackluster. And so I just think it might just be part of the cycle. Sometimes you get good, sometimes you don't.
I think you're right there. I mean, I initially was very disappointed about, kind of like, oh, why do I pay for PS Plus? Because, October we're getting on Tuesday we're gonna get Super Meat Boy on the PS4 and PS Vita. Which, is there anybody left in the world who hasn't played Super Meat Boy?
A few people were born, I would say, last week. They might not be old enough to have played it yet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've had that on like Steam and other platforms for quite a while. I've never had it on my Vita though, and it is probably a good format for
Probably
Vita. So
a great game for the Vita, on that nice.
May as well grab some trophies out of it, I guess. But they're kind of leading this month with Super Meat Boy. Like that's what you see in all their promotional collateral and graphics this month. So that's just kind of a strange decision. But then we're also getting Broken Age, which is a Double Fine game by Tim Schafer. I have found in the last several years that I'm not on board so much with this resurgence of the point-and-click adventure game. I definitely like playing them on PC back when I was a kid in the early 90s, late 80s, but I don't know. I mean, I'm actually excited to see what Tim Schafer did with Broken Age. I've heard it's okay, but another point-and-click adventure game doesn't excite me very much. I don't know. Did you ever get into like point-and-click again, or even stuff like the Telltale games that have come out? I'm not a big fan myself.
Not so much. I mean, basically, I only played them on Windows 95 whenever I didn't have a computer that was strong enough to play games in real time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then we're getting a game called Unmechanical Extended on PS4 and PS3. I have no idea what that game is. I don't know. And then PS3 owners are getting Chariot and Kickbeat. Kickbeat also coming to Vita. I've seen that one on sale in the PSN store about 1 million times. I feel like anybody who wanted that game probably already has it, but I guess now I'll be somewhat forced into trying it. I feel like I'm a little wasteful if I don't at least try every game that comes out on PS Plus. Right. And then Vita owners and PS3 owners are also getting Kung Fu Rabbit. I'm intrigued by the title, but I have no idea what this game is.
Yeah, I've tried it yet.
Yeah, so conversely, Xbox Games with Gold this month. So, for folks who aren't in the know, PlayStation Plus is a service that you pay. I don't even know. They raised the price, didn't they? What is it now a year? I honestly just let it renew and never look.
$59, I believe.
What's that?
I believe it was $59.
Yeah, I think it was $59.99. They may have raised the price. I'm thinking a little. Maybe it's still $60. It definitely a good value. I mean, you get a year where you're getting 3-4 games free each month. Games with Gold is a service that you get if you have an Xbox Live subscription, Xbox Live Gold subscription. Obviously, Xbox doesn't have 3 systems that they can distribute games across, so you only get them across 360 and Xbox One. So I wrote an article, a blog post. Probably, it's been a while now. I can actually check the date on this. So back in 2013, I actually did the nerdiest thing possible. I built a giant spreadsheet of all the Gold games and all of the PS Plus games, and I took the average Metacritic score and release date and scored each game that had come out, and then took an average to find out statistically was Games with Gold or PlayStation Plus the better service. And I settled on actually kind of a tie. Although PS Plus was a little cheaper at the time, it may still be. Again, I can't remember the exact price I'm paying, which is kind of sad. But
Money management right there, kids.
yeah, good financial management, which we give financial advice and meat eating advice out on this show from time to time. So stick around for that. Yeah, so what I came up with was that games with gold actually gave out higher rated games by a couple of points on average, going off the Metacritic score, of course. And PS Plus gave out newer games. The average age of a PlayStation Plus game at the time that we were getting was only 10 months old. And as you know, we get release date, day and date release date games on PlayStation Plus sometimes. So, you know, two of my favorite games this year came out of PlayStation Plus. So it's been worth it for me to pay the yearly price because I got Rocket League and I got Helldivers. And, you know, that's worth $60 right there, in my opinion. Yeah, it was $49.99 for PS Plus when I wrote this blog post back in 2013. So it might be $59.99 on par with Xbox Live Games with Gold now, like you mentioned. So higher rated games with gold, but newer games. The average age of a game on games with gold at the time was 3 years, 8 months. So not even a year on PS Plus, but you're getting really old stuff on games with gold. So that was an interesting comparison. I haven't gone back and done it recently, but I feel like it probably still works out that way because we do get a lot of like strange titles that no one's heard of on PS Plus. So we probably are still getting slightly lower rated on average, even though we're getting some great games in there too. But games with gold, and we know we've gotten some day and date release games, but games with gold, definitely some older stuff. So this month they're getting The Walking Dead Season 1 on Xbox 360 and Xbox One, which a lot of people really like that. So good for them if they haven't played that yet. But again, you know, pretty old title there. I mean, they're in Season 2 and beyond by this point, I believe. Then Xbox 360 owners are getting Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, that prequel, short prequel game that leads into Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain that just came out last month. So we had this on PS Plus just a couple months ago. So
Right.
Games with Gold's a little behind on that one. And that's only for 360 owners. We had it on PS4. They may have already had it on One at some point. And then they're getting Valiant Hearts on Xbox One this month, which was on PS Plus months and months and months ago. I mean, we played that a long time ago. So I don't know. I was feeling a little down about PS Plus this month after looking at the lineup. But then when I go back and look at what Games with Gold is offering, I still feel like PS Plus is probably slightly better value. At some point, I'll get Games with Gold because I'm going to have to renew my live subscription to play Halo 5. So I'll just get it anyway. But it's not something I'm paying for right now. It just doesn't seem that appealing.
Well, for me, even if the Games with Gold does provide on average more higher rated games, I still prefer the PS Plus simply because usually the more highly rated games are games you will buy yourself already much earlier. And with PlayStation, I'm getting access to a lot of games I never would have played. I never would have bought Rocket League. I never would have. It just does not look like the kind of thing I'd ever pay money for. But now that I've played it, it's one of my favorite games I've ever tried on the PlayStation 4. And so that's something I really like about the way they distribute the games with PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, you have a great point there. I agree so much because I would never play some of these kind of off the wall indie titles that come on PS Plus, and then I end up loving some of them. One really good example, Thomas Was Alone. I would never pay money to play some game that's about a rectangle that jumps around on other squares and crap. I would just be like, why this game looks stupid? Or not necessarily stupid, just not for me. Like, oh, this is kind of boring, not making enough action for me. What's that?
The narration in that was amazing, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought you had this great storytelling in the middle of this like game where you move geometric shapes around like a platformer? So I guess we just reviewed Thomas Was Alone. But yeah, I mean that's an example. That's one that comes to mind that I'm so glad that PS Plus introduced me to that. And I really like what they've done with the service there. So one last thing we wanted to talk about today, kind of a little bit of a shorter episode, but the iPhone 6s came out recently. Now I have an iPhone 6. I typically upgrade every other generation. I usually don't get the S versions, but I know you recently just got the iPhone 6s, and I'm curious to hear what you think about that piece of hardware and any improvements or new features that have been made that really stand out to you there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I guess first a little backstory. I usually don't get newest edition of the phone, but the day before Friday, the release day for the 6S, my phone completely shattered, the glass, everything. And so I needed a new phone, and I needed one ASAP. So I thought, I'm going to get the newest, latest, and greatest for the first time in my life. And so I got it, and it's been pretty amazing. First off, it looks and feels just like the regular iPhone 6. It's maybe just ever so slightly thicker, but you'll never notice that just by holding it. But in terms of the features, the one I've been using the most probably is the 3D Touch, which I'd say the easiest way to describe it is, imagine there's something that simulates like a right click on a mouse, but on your iPhone screen. And so, for example, if you want to send a text, to say, instead of clicking messages and then clicking on the person's name and then clicking in to send the text, you just press a little bit harder on your screen, and a little dialog box, as I'm going to call it, pops up, and you can just click new message from right there. And many of the apps, such as Instagram and Twitter, have already been updated to incorporate this feature, and it just saves a lot of time, and it's something that I find very useful. Even more useful is if you're in, say, Safari. Before, you searched for something in Google, there were a lot of links that came up and you were not sure which one you wanted to look at. You'd have to open them all and then hit back, and then open another one and hit back, or just open them in different tabs. Now you can just apply a little pressure on the link, and it'll pop you onto the screen. If you don't like it, just let it go, and then if it is what you were looking for, add a little more pressure, and then it pops it right there into the front. So interestingly, those features are called peek and pop. But with that, I've linked is for third-party apps, the that feature has been consistent. So the way touch working app is to work in another. And so maybe once after a few months, the developers might maybe use that a bit more consistent across apps, so that you would need to worry about. Another thing is the cameras have received upgrades. The back camera was upgraded to from an 8-megapixel camera to a 12-megapixel camera. I honestly don't see that much of a difference, but where the difference is in the front, I guess, the selfie camera, and that's been bumped up from like 1.2 to a 5-megapixel camera, so you can actually see what you look like without, looking like you're at a blurry nighttime place, even in the middle of the day. So that's great. And then the other big thing I've noticed is when you take a photo, you get a little bit of video before and after the photo you take, and they call it a live photo. And so you can just hold down the screen or press it, and then you'll see a little bit of what happened before and after. So that's kind of a cool feature as well. And you can turn that off and on. You can set it as your home screen, and then if you hold down the screen, it'll move around. So that's kind of interesting too. Nice. Other than that, it's just faster. It loads apps faster. I think there's more RAM in it. I'm not sure. And then something else that's really interesting, I've not tested this myself, but I've been watching it on YouTube. Apparently, Apple has done something to make the phone a lot more water resistant than it used to be. Internally, they coated a lot a lot of the parts in something that helps, I guess, keep moisture out, which is great. And so you'll see videos online of people submerging the phone and pulling it out, and it still works just fine.
Wow, that'll That'll save a lot of people. I
Yes.
think that's probably one of that aside from shattering the front. That's probably the number two way that people kill their phones, getting them
You
wet.
know, here's the funny thing: they didn't mention anything about that in their marketing, and I was trying to think why would they not mention that. But actually, it's really good for Apple that they do that as well, because Apple rolled out that program, which I'm going to call it essentially a leasing program, where you can get a new phone every month and return your old one. And since water damage is a huge problem with modern phones, it means that Apple will be getting a lot more phones back that are functional than non-functional in certain ways. So I think that's probably helps them out as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just miss the days of the big giant gray brick Night at the Roxbury phones.
Oh my gosh! Actually, you can buy it plugs into the headset jack of the phone. These old style handsets that you can talk through.
I don't know why anybody would do that, but I guess just to be ironic.
Yeah, or looking retro is the new modern thing to do. So
Indeed. Well, it's been a great show. A little shorter than normal. We didn't have a lot of our normal segments just because it was kind of a slower week, but we'll be back next week for sure with all the segments that you guys love. The backlog, talking about our topics of the week. The news motorcycle will drop off some more news. Hopefully, a few more things moving and shaking in the next week in gaming and technology and everything. And of course, we'll give you some advice and call the doctor and talk a little bit about We Have Hobbies, which I will say, even though that segment's non-gaming, and I didn't talk about this in the backlog, but I did do a little tabletop gaming over the weekend. I played some Ticket to Ride, and I'm happy to announce that I am still undefeated in that game. Did a little 4-player Ticket to Ride, and I had a pretty long train, and I'll just leave it at that.
wow.
All right, so I guess just want to thank all of the listeners out there. Thank all of our live viewers. Thank everybody who downloads the show through iTunes and other platforms each week. And if you want to get in touch with us, send us questions, comments, feedback, you can do that at worldmapcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the show notes and listen to the show in your browser at worldmapcast.com. Again, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and all those fun places. We do the show live on Google Hangouts on Air here each Sunday. And we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. And that's about it. Just tell a friend about the show. Give us some iTunes review love. That would be awesome and outstanding and wonderful. And I believe that is about it. Clark, what do you say?
I say, well, I guess stop being selfish. I want to thank them as well. Okay, so thank you, everybody.
Fair enough. Well, until next time, we're popping smoke.